Well, I'm not planning on doing, 10 minutes or so here with the mayor only on the Chiefs and the Royals. I told him last week I wouldn't do that, but the storyline keeps unfolding as such. So we'll start there with the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, on a Thursday morning on KCMO 95.7 FM. All right, Mr. Mayor, let's just start here. What does Kansas City, Jackson County, and the state of Missouri need to do to keep this team in your town where they are right now?
I think we need to just continue to leverage what we have already. The Chiefs are comfortable with the facility at Arrowhead Stadium. I think they have shared what the number is in terms of what further investment they need. It makes financial sense for the Chiefs. It makes financial sense for Missouri and Kansas City. And the Royals have also made clear they want a downtown baseball stadium. And so I think what you are seeing is a lot of perhaps negotiation and leveraging. But, the thing that's been most entertaining to me over the last week is that you're just seeing more like stuff just thrown out. Kind of yesterday, I was reading a newspaper story, and I think after about 2 weeks of scrutiny, it became clear that there's no way the Star Bonds alone can pay for not just two teams, but it seems they can't pay for just one of them alone. And so somebody was saying, well, now we're using not just the sports betting revenue, which I believe has $4 million total in the account, but also now looking to use the lottery revenue that they're estimating will always have overruns, and then the sports betting revenue will increase from $4 million to $36 million within 2 years. I mean, Pete, I know you're somebody who is likely a fiscal conservative and looks at things, but this seems to be some of the haziest projection work I think I've ever seen. And what I would suggest perhaps to the state of Kansas is actually just go ahead and legalize marijuana, and at least you have a clearer outline for how you can use some revenue and apply them into a sports team. Because right now, the suggestions seem to be all over the place.
Yeah, there's no clarity on anything going on that side, it seems like. Now, the other thing that's come up here over the last couple of days or so is the possibility of a Wyandotte County earnings tax, but only paid for by those who work in Wyandotte County but do not live in Wyandotte County. Of course, Kansas City, Missouri, as do other cities, kind of have the whole deal. If you live there, you pay the earnings tax, or if you work there, you pay the earnings tax. Put on your lawyer's cap for a second. You suggested yesterday that it's illegal to have an earnings tax that only applies to people who work in a specific county or city. Why is that?
Yeah, it's just foundational. And by the way, who knows what happens out of the legislature next week? Every day we see something new, and I'm talking about the Kansas legislature. But you talk about the most backwards approach to things right now. So Republicans are pushing initiatives. I know it's probably county-based Democrats, but that all of a sudden, in the search for whatever we're looking for here, now they'll introduce an earnings tax in the state of Kansas that wouldn't probably stop just at Wyandotte County, but could spread to Johnson and others. And then all the things that people have been telling us for years are wrong with Kansas City, Missouri, basically they'll just start adopting. I mean, this is bonkers, but it's kind of entertaining to watch, and I welcome the opportunity to talk about it. In terms of the proposal of an earnings tax that is only assessed as to non-resident workers, no, you can't do that. That is fundamentally illegal. It violates the U.S. Constitution's Commerce Clause, which says you can't create impediments to interstate commerce. An example I provided the other day, you can't just have a toll road, let's say, that applies to people from another jurisdiction. Right? We can't build a toll road to pay for Missouri roads that only applies to those who are non-Missourians. That's an impediment to interstate commerce. You're supposed to be able to get throughout the country freely and in some sort of fluid way. And that's why, for those of you, you're from the Northeast, so you've done it. If you drive Interstate 95 from Boston down to Washington, D.C., you're paying those in all of the states there. You don't just get a special break if you're from New Jersey or something. Mm-hmm. And so, it's interesting. I certainly understand why you have an earnings tax in an urban city that pays for lots of things. But what you start to do when you create an earnings tax is acknowledge something that's kind of interesting and under-discussed here. Kansas City has an earnings tax for a number of reasons, but now partially it's because we pay for a lot of stuff for an entire region. We need policing that helps support stadiums and arenas and downtown and big events and all of that. And what you are showing, even in the discussion of an earnings tax in Wyandotte County, would be to suggest that even if you can figure out the Star Bond and the magic gambling debt and everything else, and it all goes to bonds that no taxpayer has any impact on, and it's just this voodoo economics that works, there's still tens of millions of dollars for years that will be paid for by the taxpayers of Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, and ultimately the state of Kansas that's unfunded in any of these schemes. That's why you need an earnings tax. And I think that's something that people aren't actually focusing on, but something that's kind of interesting in this chat. And by the way, any earnings tax, I swear to you now, even if people think otherwise, lawsuits will be filed immediately, would have to apply to residents of, say, a Wyandotte County as well as non-residents of a Wyandotte County. And so you would be increasing people's taxes broadly.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Have you had any substantial conversations on the Missouri side with either County Executive White, Governor Parson here in recent days as this Kansas movement has picked up some steam?
You know, I will never lie to you. We have not with the county executive. And, you know, I think they kind of march to the beat of their own drummer. Everybody knows that. And you know, in this play one day that somebody writes about teams and stadiums, he's in many ways the central character in lots of ways for all of us here in Missouri and Kansas. We have had conversations with Governor Parson's office. Governor Parson's office, and I believe the governor himself, remain committed to keeping the teams in Kansas City and in the state of Missouri, and building, I think, a strong way for the state to do that. I think state legislators, many of whom I have spoken to, remain committed to that, and I think you'll see substantial legislative action in the year ahead to make sure that these teams have a wonderful opportunity. What I have said time and again, and by the way, today I welcome the conversation a long time because it's where we are. But, you know, I've said time and again, I think that no matter what you see happen in Topeka next week, even though it's supposed to be a discussion about taxes, I think this starts, unfortunately for folks maybe, a longer conversation in terms of, all right, what are you figuring out? What are the deals that are actually on the table? What gets done? What does the governor-elect of Missouri look to pledge or promise in connection with what's coming ahead in the future? And I think that's how you see, you know, a long-term solution work out. I think Missouri, Kansas City remain very much in the game in terms of what it is we're looking to do. I think Jackson County probably has changed its positioning and is in the conversation only so much as they own the stadiums, the current ones, and so they're essential. But I think as you look to monetary terms long term, it's probably a Missouri and Kansas City conversation rather than the pure countywide sales tax, which frankly, even in Kansas, they're not really looking at in terms of how you fund these stadiums in the future.
Yeah, that is true. I want to shift to the Plaza. You announced and said yesterday that the deal with HP Village Partners on the Plaza sale is going to be wrapping up here in the weeks ahead. You specifically mentioned a private-public partnership when it comes to law enforcement. Now, I remember we talked about this a few months ago, and you suggested the Plaza basically had to do a better job hiring its own public safety officers and things of that nature. What has shifted in your mind and why you're now willing to use public resources towards the Plaza?
I retain in many ways the same view. When we say public-private partnership, not just in financing, but also in public safety, I think you allow the Plaza either through privatization of certain areas or certainly expanded control through a community improvement district for how they can govern their own security, the type of presence they can have, the lighting, the cameras, the rules that they can have in terms of what you can do. And so, you know, I have had the chance to visit Highland Park Village in Dallas. That is owned by the entity that is looking to buy the Country Club Plaza and complete the deal. And they had exceptional security and an exceptional security presence in a place that did feel otherwise safe, but I still got to see a security agent every, like turn and see somebody. And frankly, it gives you that sense of what you expect in an urban center here in 2024. And so we will work with them in connection with that. I know they will work collaboratively with KCPD, but something that I respect a lot from the potential Plaza owners is that when they came to town, they met with law enforcement in Kansas City. They met with the Police Foundation, wanted to see how they can play a role in building a safer city. And they understand that there are some small offenses that lead to bigger ones. This is an homage to those of you who are believers in broken windows. But it is making sure, where there are a bunch of people loitering, they can't just do that for a while. Where there are petty offenses, you get yourself banned from coming back. I mean, those sorts of things that suggest that we're not going to tolerate any type of misbehavior, no matter your age, on the Country Club Plaza. It's not a place just to drop off kids and see what the heck happens at the end of the night. And I think you'll see that change come on pretty quickly.
And the curfew, I know there is one underway right now. Do you feel like that's been working here in the early weeks of summer?
It has been working in the early weeks of summer. The challenge for us, and it's something that I continue to want to expand, you have a lot of kids that loiter in a park nearby. I would like to see the Park Ranger Service have expanded enforcement authorities. I know I'm working on that with the Board of Police Commissioners in the state of Missouri to make sure that, when the challenge sometimes of enforcement is, all right, if you say here's a rule in the park, we have a park ranger who does it. If a kid steps off into the street, then you got to call a KCPD officer. If they're not there, then you lose some of your law enforcement influence. And that's actually how sometimes we have big roving bands of folks who are walking from, let's say, the park to Shake Shack to whatever. And it's created issues. And so I think, working all together, we find a way to solve it. But, I bring a point in from the sports stadiums and the teams and put it in on the plaza. Kansas City, Missouri, for really its entire history, since we are in many ways the core of the region, and proudly so. And by the way, I am a bi-state guy. I've posted about it. I've freaked out a bunch of people. I've got a lot of friends and Lee Summit who got mad at me. They're like, bro, you work for Missouri, not Kansas. But, I see us as being the ones who've helped build any number of exciting and dynamic things in Kansas City, and the Plaza is one of them. This will be a several $100 million deal. I think it is an endorsement of Kansas City, of the work that we do, of an incredible crown jewel asset. I think the reason that you continue to have conversations about downtown baseball, teams investing, you'll see the Chiefs have a ring ceremony today. The ring ceremony is with respect, not going to be on the edge of our region, whether it's in Wyandotte, Johnson, or Eastern Jack, or anywhere else, right? It's going to be in the core of Kansas City because we do big things, we build big things, and the Plaza's reinvestment is going to be another part of it. A healthy heart is key to a healthy person, and I think that's the same thing for a region. That's why we're proud to see this Plaza deal going forward.
And just last thing here, do you have a date on that yet, or are we just looking at the weeks ahead?
I think it is imminent. It's impending. It's very soon. But I'm not going to get ahead of the real estate folks. I know things can always change. But, look, we're ready to hit the ground running. I think you're going to see a lot of even ordinance and legislative activity. And unlike perhaps what you're seeing on the other side of the line, it's actually going to be fairly clear ordinances with clear expenses for what we're actually trying to do. And we'll be able to have a good chat where I think we see the future of the Plaza, what it looks like, how it's invested in by the fall. And I hope that coming up soon by the Plaza Art Fair in late September, we're seeing a whole new path with new ownership.
Mayor Quinton Lucas on KCMO 95.7 FM. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great day.
Good to talk to you. Have a great weekend.
All right. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO 95.7 FM.